The heat of late summer hung low over the Hawkins estate, the kind of warmth that made people slow down, loosen up, and speak a little too freely. Yet my hands were ice cold as I stepped into the backyard, carrying a tray of lemonade I didn't remember pouring. Families laughed near the grill, the scent of roasted corn drifting lazily through the air, completely unaware that I was about to detonate a truth no one here was prepared to face. I could feel Eleanor Hawkins' sharp eyes following me, the same way she always watched, evaluating, judging, weighing whether I still deserved the Hawkins name. If she knew what I knew, she wouldn't just be judging, she'd be preparing for war. Behind me, gravel crunched. I didn't have to turn around. I knew that sound by heart, the hesitant, uneven steps of a woman who didn't belong among manicured hedges and silver-plated serving trays. Roxy Wells, the mistress. The woman my husband had been taking to rooftop bars while telling me he was working late. No one else knew she'd been invited. No one else knew I'd discovered the fake name Logan used with her. And absolutely no one knew what I was about to do. My pulse hammered as every head turned, conversations faltered, forks froze midair. Even the wind seemed to pause, waiting. Roxy stood there in the soft white sundress, clutching a small Tiffany box like it might save her life. She scanned the guests nervously, then spotted me, and relief washed over her face. She thought she was here because Logan wanted her to be. She had no idea she was stepping straight into the center of the Hawkins family legacy. I smiled gently, almost kindly, as I motioned her forward. Then, loud enough for every cousin, aunt, and investor in the family to hear, I said, "Everyone, this is Roxy, my husband's second wife, and she's pregnant." The lemonade tray slipped from someone's hands and shattered, and just like that, the Hawkins empire began to crack. The backyard fell into a stunned quiet, the kind that makes every breath sound too loud. Someone turned off the music without realizing it. Even the flame under the grill flickered as if unsure it should keep burning. All eyes were fixed on Roxy, this trembling young woman clutching her Tiffany box, and on me, the wife who had just shattered the carefully polished illusion of the Hawkins family. Logan wasn't outside yet. He was still in the house, upstairs, changing into his crisp button-down shirt, the one he always wore when he wanted to look like the golden sun. He had no idea what was waiting for him, no idea that his two worlds had just collided in the most public, humiliating way possible. Eleanor moved first. She didn't yell. She didn't gasp. She simply stepped closer, the diamonds on her Cartier bracelet catching sunlight, her expression carved from something colder than anger. "Mara," she said softly, "what exactly are we dealing with?" Her voice was calm, almost too calm. It was the kind of voice people use before calling their lawyers. I felt Roxy shift nervously beside me. He told me he wasn't married," she whispered, her eyes glassy with confusion. "He said his name was Alex Rivers. He said he didn't have a family." A ripple of disbelief moved through the guests. The Hawkins family prided themselves on honor, clean reputations, and picture-perfect holiday photos. This wasn't a scandal, it was a detonation. Before I could answer Eleanor, the sliding glass door opened. Logan stepped out, adjusting his cufflinks, wearing his best effortless smile. The smile froze the second he saw Roxy. His hands stopped mid-motion. His face lost all color, then regained it in a violent shade of panic. "Mara," he said slowly. What is she doing here?" He didn't even look at Roxy. He only looked at me. That was the moment the whole family understood the truth, because innocence doesn't look like fear. Innocence doesn't look like a man calculating how quickly he can spin a lie. I held his gaze. "Logan," I said clearly, "your second wife has arrived. You should welcome her." A collective gasp rolled across the yard, and for the first time in his life, Logan Hawkins had no script to hide behind. For a moment, it seemed the entire Hawkins estate stopped breathing. Logan's panic had spread through the family like a cold front, freezing every expression in place, but the only face that wasn't frozen was Roxy's. She stepped forward, not confidently, not gracefully, but with the shaky determination of someone realizing she had been living inside a lie she didn't build. "Logan," she whispered, her voice trembling. Whatever your name really is. Her fingers clenched around the Tiffany box until the ribbon crushed. You told me you weren't married. You told me you lived alone. You said you were trying to build a future with me. A murmur spread through the guests. Eleanor's posture stiffened, her jaw tightening ever so slightly. Several uncles exchanged looks, while one of Logan's cousins muttered something that sounded a lot like, "Holy hell." Logan took a step back. "Roxy, don't do this. You don't understand." "No," she said, louder this time. "It's you who doesn't understand. I didn't come here to ruin your life. I came because I thought you invited me." Her eyes darted to me, realization dawning. "Mara, you invited me because you knew, didn't you?" I nodded once, slow, steady, unapologetic. "I invited you because you deserved the truth," I said. "And because this family deserved to see the man Logan has become." Roxy swallowed hard, tears gathering. "I'm not pregnant," she suddenly blurted, turning toward the shocked crowd. "He told me we should pretend for a while to see how his family reacted before he made anything official. I never agreed to any of this. I thought he loved me." A collective exhale rippled through the yard, shock mixed with disgust. Eleanor closed her eyes as if absorbing a blow. "Logan Hawkins," she said, in a tone that could have frozen fire. "Did you tell this woman to lie about carrying a Hawkins child?" Logan's mouth opened. No words came out. Because there was no explanation that wouldn't destroy him. Roxy let out a small, broken laugh. "I thought I was the only one he was lying to." She looked at me, really looked, and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Mara. I didn't know." And in that moment, the mistress became the witness. The crowd turned toward Logan, waiting for the man who had crafted so many lies to finally speak one truth. He couldn't. Logan finally found his voice, but not his dignity. "Mara," he snapped, forcing a strained smile that fooled no one. "This is a misunderstanding. You're blowing things out of proportion in front of my family." A few chuckles of disbelief spread across the crowd. Even his favorite cousin, Tyler, muttered, "Man, don't do that, not now." I didn't bother responding. Instead, I reached into my tote bag, a simple canvas one, embarrassingly out of place among diamond bracelets and designer shoes, and pulled out a thin envelope. Nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical, just paper, ordinary paper. But the moment Logan saw it, his face drained completely. "Mara," he said again, this time quiet, desperate. Let's talk alone." "No," I replied calmly. "You and I have had too many conversations alone. It's time your family hears one." I opened the envelope and slid out 3 sheets. The first was a hotel invoice from the plaza. 5 weekends in a row, booked under the name Alex Rivers, paid with Logan's corporate card. Gasps erupted. The second sheet was a lease agreement for a luxury apartment in Soho, $10,000 a month, signed under the same fake name, with Logan's unmistakable signature on the guarantor line. Eleanor inhaled sharply. But the third document was the one that truly cut through the room. A purchase receipt for a Cartier tank watch to Roxy, my future. Roxy's lips trembled. "You told me it was a birthday gift your mother bought." Eleanor stared at the paper like it was poison. "He used my name. My accounts." Her voice dropped to a whisper sharp enough to slice stone. "He forged my authorization." Logan stepped forward, sweating now. "Mom, please, it's not what it looks like." "It is exactly what it looks like," she snapped. And that was the moment the balance of the room shifted. Power shifted. The Hawkins heir was no longer standing on solid ground. I looked at him steadily. "You didn't just cheat, Logan. You lied to everyone. You stole. You manipulated. You built an entire second life." Roxy hugged her arms around herself, tears streaking her cheeks. "I didn't know any of this, I swear." I touched her shoulder gently. "I know. Logan opened his mouth again, but the words, like his excuses, like his empire, collapsed before they could form. And just like that, the truth became bigger than him. For most of my marriage, Eleanor Hawkins treated me like a polite inconvenience, present, tolerated, but never fully accepted into the marble and legacy world of the Hawkins name. Yet as the papers fluttered in her hand, her icy composure began to fracture. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Roxy. She looked only at her son. "Logan," she said slowly. "How long?" He swallowed. "Mom, can we please talk inside?" "How long?" she repeated, her voice rising just enough to tremble the air. "Have you been living a second life under my roof, using my accounts and embarrassing this family?" The Hawkins relatives stiffened. Some looked away. Others watched with an almost morbid awe because no one, absolutely no one, had ever seen Eleanor lose control. Logan tried a smile, strained and thin. "Mom, you're overreacting." Eleanor cut him off with a raised hand. "I asked you a question." The silence pressed down so heavily that even the cicadas seemed to stop buzzing. He finally exhaled, defeated. 8 months. Roxy flinched. She whispered, "You told me we met before your divorce because you wanted to do things the right way." Eleanor's expression hardened in a way I had never witnessed. "Divorce?" She turned toward me sharply. "Mara, has he discussed divorce with you?" I shook my head. "No, not once." A ripple of outrage moved through the crowd. The Hawkins family valued one thing more than wealth, appearances, and Logan had just turned their pristine brunch table image into a tabloid scandal waiting to erupt. Then something unexpected happened. Eleanor stepped closer, toward me, not Logan. Her voice softened just enough for only the front row of relatives to hear. "Mara, you should have told me sooner." The word stunned me. This woman who once criticized my lack of pedigree, who insisted Hawkins' wives should speak less, smile more, was now choosing a side, and it wasn't her son's. Logan's panic sharpened. "Mom, you're not seriously taking her side over your own blood." Eleanor turned on him with the force of a storm long restrained. "When my blood disgraces our name, lies to an innocent woman, and forges my signature?" Her voice cracked with cold fury. "Yes, Logan, I will." A murmur of agreement rolled through the yard. For the first time since marrying into this family, I wasn't standing alone. Logan realized it too, and fear finally flickered in his eyes. If anyone had told me a year ago that I'd stand in front of the entire Hawkins dynasty and expose Logan with his mistress trembling beside me, I would have laughed, or cried, or both. I was never the woman who sought confrontation. I was the woman who smoothed situations, who apologized first, who carried silence like a shield. But silence doesn't save you. It only protects the liar. As the murmurs swelled around us, Eleanor placed a hand on my arm, light, restrained, almost unsure of how to offer comfort. "Mara," she said, "there's more you're not telling me, isn't there?" Her tone wasn't accusatory. It was something closer to regret. I nodded slowly. "I didn't want to embarrass the family, or drag you into something you didn't deserve." Logan scoffed loudly. "Oh, look at her, acting like she's the victim." Eleanor shot him a glare that could have turned steel brittle. Roxy looked at me then, wiping her cheeks with a shaky hand. "You invited me because you knew he'd never admit what he did unless he was cornered." "Exactly," I said gently. "You deserve the truth as much as I did." What I didn't tell her, what I hadn't told anyone, was that this confrontation hadn't been my original plan. I had collected receipts, I had saved messages, I had rehearsed the words I would say when I finally confronted Logan alone, somewhere private, somewhere safe. But then I found something in his desk drawer, a document that changed everything. A hidden contract transferring money, 6 figures, into an account under his fake identity, Alex Rivers. This wasn't just infidelity. This was deceit tied to corporate funds, fraud, something that could ruin not only our marriage, but my career, my reputation, my future. I realized then, confronting him privately wouldn't protect me. I needed witnesses. I needed truth laid bare. And so the plan I executed today wasn't an act of vengeance, it was survival. Logan must have sensed the shift in the air, because his voice trembled when he spoke next. "What else did you find, Mara?" I didn't answer. Not yet. But the look in my eyes told him everything. We were nowhere near the end. We were only on the first page of the destruction he built with his own hands. The tension in the backyard grew so thick it felt like the air itself resisted movement. But before anyone could demand another answer, Eleanor straightened her shoulders and said, "Everyone inside, now!" Her voice wasn't loud, yet the authority in it snapped the family into motion. The Hawkins clan shuffled toward the house like witnesses being escorted into a courtroom. Roxy lingered near me, afraid to move without permission, while Logan hovered behind us like a trapped animal searching for an escape route. Inside the Hawkins living room, wide marble floors, framed portraits of ancestors, and a grand piano no one had touched since Christmas. Eleanor shut the door and locked it. I had never seen her lock anything in her own home. Not in 10 years. Her eyes landed on me. "Mara, that contract you mentioned, where is it?" Logan stepped forward instantly. "Mom, don't listen to her. She's twisting things." "I wasn't talking to you," she snapped. I reached into my tote again and pulled out a small USB drive. Simple, black, harmless looking. But inside it was every screenshot, every document, every lie Logan had hoped would stay hidden. Roxy's breath hitched. Logan's face went ash gray. "This," I said quietly, "is everything he's done under the identity of Alex Rivers. Transfers, reservations, leases, even emails to investors pretending to be someone else. It's more than cheating. It's corporate fraud," Eleanor finished for me. Her voice didn't tremble. It hardened. Logan lunged toward me, panic breaking through his mask. "Give that to me, Mara. You don't understand what you're doing." I stepped back. Eleanor stepped in front of me. "Touch her," she warned, "and I will personally have security remove you from this house." Roxy backed away too, horrified. "Logan, what were you planning to do with all that money?" He didn't answer. He couldn't, because every answer made him guilty. Eleanor extended her hand to me. "May I?" I placed the USB in her palm. She held it like a ticking bomb, because it was. It could destroy Logan's career, reputation, freedom. And for the first time, she looked at me not with judgment, but with respect. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. "This ends today." Eleanor didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. With the USB drive locked between her fingers, she walked toward her late husband's study, a room traditionally reserved for family decisions and financial matters. The Hawkins living room emptied as everyone followed, drawn by gravity stronger than curiosity. Logan stayed behind for a moment, gripping the edge of a marble counter as though the house itself were tilting. Maybe it was. For the first time, this mansion, his childhood fortress, felt hostile. And not because of me, because of the truth. When he finally entered the study, his swagger was gone. Sweat collected at his temples. The confidence he always carried like a tailored suit had started to crumble at the seams. Eleanor stood behind the mahogany desk, inserting the USB into a sleek silver laptop. The Hawkins crest glowed faintly above her, an unspoken reminder of the legacy Logan had just spat on. The files loaded, transfers, fake identities, messages, receipts. Roxy covered her mouth with a shaking hand. Some relatives whispered, some gasped. Others simply stared at Logan with a mixture of disbelief and disappointment that cut deeper than anger. "Logan Hawkins," Eleanor said, her tone steady but deadly quiet. "You forged documents, misused corporate funds, and deceived this family in a way that jeopardizes everything your father built." Logan's eyes darted wildly, searching for sympathy, finding none. "Mom, please, I can fix this. I'll pay it back. Stop." Eleanor's voice cracked, not with emotion, but with control. "You didn't just betray your wife. You betrayed your inheritance." He took a step toward her. "Mom, don't do this. Not here. Not in front of them." But she wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at me. "Mara, she said. Is there anything else you want this family to know? Anything you were forced to carry alone? My throat tightened. I hadn't expected the question, or the compassion behind it. I nodded slowly. Yes, there is something else. Logan stiffened. The room leaned closer. I reached into my tote again, palms trembling, not from fear, but from release. This wasn't just emotional betrayal, I said. Logan planned to transfer the last amount next week, enough to disappear with a new identity. Roxy gasped. Disappear? Leave both of us? He couldn't deny it, not with the evidence glowing on the screen. And just like that, the Hawkins house, his house, no longer protected him. It condemned him. The study felt smaller than it ever had, like the walls themselves had started inching inward, tightening around Logan with every breath he took. His carefully constructed double life was no longer a secret whispered in shadows. It was glowing on a laptop screen in front of 3 generations of Hawkins' blood. And the room was no longer neutral. It had chosen a side. Uncle Richard, the eldest in the family, crossed his arms. Logan, do you understand what this means for the board? For our name? His voice cracked with the disappointment of a man who'd once believed Logan would inherit the reins. Logan tried to speak, but Aunt Vivian cut him off. You were going to disappear? Leave Mara? And steal from the company? Her voice wavered. Do you know what that would have done to your mother? Roxy looked like she might collapse. She sank into a leather chair. He promised me a future. Said he was finalizing the divorce. Said he just needed a little more time. She shook her head, almost gagging. You didn't plan a life with me. You planned an exit. The words hit harder than the evidence. Logan's mask finally cracked. I wasn't going to disappear forever, he insisted. I just needed space, time to figure things out. By stealing? Eleanor's voice was a blade dipped in ice. By forging my name? By humiliating your wife in silence for months? He lifted a shaking hand toward her. Mom, please, don't. But it was too late, because the family had done something I never thought possible. They stepped closer, to me. Cousins I barely spoke to nodded in silent understanding. Vivian placed a gentle hand on my back. Even Richard bowed his head slightly, as though acknowledging the weight I had carried alone. For the first time, I felt something unfamiliar in this house. Safety. Logan saw it too, and panic flooded his eyes. This is my family, he said hoarsely. My legacy. You can't all turn on me because of her. Eleanor's response was quiet, devastating. We're not turning on you because of Mara. We're turning on you because of your choices. The room went still, and in that stillness, Logan Hawkins realized the truth. He hadn't just cheated on his wife. He had betrayed everyone who ever believed in him. Logan stood in the center of the study like a man awaiting sentencing. His breath came fast, uneven, as though the air had turned against him. Maybe it had, because in this room, his family's legacy, his father's pride, truth had replaced oxygen. Eleanor didn't sit. She remained standing behind the desk, one hand resting on the laptop, the other gripping the back of a leather chair as if grounding herself. Logan, she said, you will explain yourself, right now. He shook his head, eyes darting. Mom, please, let's handle this privately. This is humiliating. Roxy let out a bitter, incredulous laugh. Humiliating? Try living in fear that your boyfriend was hiding you because he had a wife he forgot to mention. Logan turned on her. Roxy, enough. No, she snapped, rising to her feet with surprising force. You used me. You lied about everything. You even lied about your name. Do you know how insane that sounds? Her voice cracked, and the room absorbed every tremor. I watched Logan's facade crumble further. This wasn't just exposure. This was dismantling, and there was no corner left for him to hide in. Uncle Richard approached the desk, leaning forward to study the files. Forged signatures, fraudulent accounts, misappropriated funds. He looked at Logan. You didn't just cheat on your wife. You compromised the company. Logan's jaw clenched.
I was going to fix it. By running? Vivian demanded. Mara found evidence you planned to disappear. The word disappear echoed like a thunderclap. I spoke then, not loudly, not dramatically, but with clarity that cut through every voice. You were never planning a future with her, I said, nodding toward Roxy. You were planning freedom from consequences. Logan stared at me with something between fury and desperation. Stop. Just stop. You've made your point. But Eleanor wasn't finished. She stepped out from behind the desk, walking slowly toward her son. Every eye followed her. You are no longer the man I raised, she said quietly, and you will not drag this family down with you. Mom, you will step down, she said, effective immediately. The room fell dead silent. Logan blinked as if the words were foreign. Step down? Yes, Eleanor said. From the company, from the trust, from every position you hold under this name. A single sentence, a life dismantled. And for the first time, Logan realized this wasn't a punishment. It was justice. For a long moment, Logan didn't move. His eyes didn't blink. His breath didn't even rise. He looked like a man who had finally reached the end of a road he'd paved with his own arrogance, a road he thought would always bend for him. But now, there was no bend left, just a cliff. You can't do this, he finally whispered, voice cracking. Mom, you can't take everything from me. Eleanor stood tall, her expression steeled by decades of protecting a legacy now smeared by her own son. I'm not taking anything, Logan. You gave it away when you forged my signature. He staggered back as if struck. I made a mistake. A mistake? Uncle Richard cut in. Doesn't involve months of deception. Roxy stepped forward, her face blotchy from tears, but her voice stronger than before. You told me your family wouldn't accept me. You said you needed money to start fresh. I thought you were saving for a home. She shook her head, disgusted. You were stealing from your own mother. Logan turned to her, pleading. Roxy, I cared about you. She recoiled. Don't. Everything you said was a lie. Every word. I watched him crumble, and somewhere inside me, a quiet ache I'd carried for years loosened. Not joy, not revenge, just a release, a shedding of the weight his deceit had built around my life. Logan's gaze snapped to me as if I were the only person he still had a chance with. Mara, you know me. You know I'm not this. You're blowing it out of proportion because you're angry. I swallowed, not sadness, but clarity. No, Logan, I'm seeing you clearly for the first time. He stepped toward me. We can fix this. We can still fix us. Eleanor blocked him with a hand. You will not speak to her like she owes you anything. He froze again. Then came the final blow. Eleanor lifted the USB drive. The board will receive this tomorrow, and legal counsel tonight. You will resign, she repeated, or the company will remove you publicly. Logan's voice tore from his throat. You'd humiliate your own son? Her answer was soft. No, Logan. You humiliated yourself. His knees buckled. The man who built a lie finally collapsed beneath it. For a moment, the study fell into a strange, suspended silence. Not calm, just the kind of stillness that settles right before the next fracture. Logan knelt there, breathing hard, while the family stared at him as though seeing a stranger in his skin. Roxy was the first to move. Not toward Logan, but toward me. Her steps were hesitant, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to speak again, yet something inside her pushed forward. When she reached my side, she clutched the Tiffany box to her chest and whispered, I didn't just come today because of Logan. Every head turned, even Eleanor's brows lifted. Roxy swallowed. 3 weeks ago, Logan, Alex, asked me to sign something, a document. He said it was for future protection, in case the media ever got too close. Her voice shook. But Mara, it wasn't a protection form. It was a statement saying I agreed he'd never promised me anything. It was basically a waiver. Logan's head snapped up. Roxy, stop. She didn't. She couldn't. The dam had broken. I didn't sign it, she continued, because something felt wrong, so I kept it. She reached into her purse with trembling fingers and unfolded a creased paper. And the name he used wasn't Alex Rivers. It was Logan Hawkins, his real name. A collective gasp moved through the room. Eleanor stepped forward instantly.
Let me see that.
Roxy handed it over, hands shaking. The waiver was damning, more damning than any receipt or transfer. It showed that Logan was preparing for exposure long before he believed anyone suspected him. This wasn't impulsive cheating. It was a calculated double life, and the bold, confident signature at the bottom belonged to Logan, not Alex, just Logan. Eleanor exhaled, long and exhausted. This means he admitted the affair, legally, before anyone confronted him. Her voice hardened. This document destroys any defense he thought he had. Logan's face twisted in horror. Roxy, why would you bring that? Her eyes filled again, not with love, not even with heartbreak, with realization. Because I finally understand. She turned to look at me. He wasn't building a future with me.
He was protecting himself from me and from you. Then she said something no one expected. Mara, he underestimated you, and so did I. Her confession didn't heal everything, but it cracked open a path I hadn't seen before. A path where the mistress wasn't my enemy, only he was. The study door creaked open before anyone could react, and a small voice floated into the room.
Mom? Why is everybody yelling?
My heart dropped. There, standing in the doorway with a toy truck in one hand and confusion clouding his big brown eyes, was Evan, our 7-year-old son. He had been playing in the backyard, far from the blast radius of adult betrayal, or so I'd hoped. Logan's head jerked up, his expression cracking with something close to terror. Not of consequences, not of the family, but of being seen by the one person whose opinion he couldn't manipulate. "Buddy," he breathed, scrambling to his feet. "Hey, come here!" But Evan didn't go to him. For the first time in his life, he walked straight to me, wrapping both arms around my waist as if he sensed I needed protection more than he did. His small body pressed into mine, grounding me in a way no adult presence ever had. "Why is Daddy sad?" he asked softly. "And who is she?" He pointed at Roxy. The room froze. Roxy looked shattered, unable to lift her eyes. Everyone else stared at the floor, as if avoiding a child's gaze might spare them from moral indictment. I knelt beside Evan. "Sweetheart, this is Miss Roxy. She knew Daddy in a different way." It wasn't the whole truth, but it wasn't a lie. Before I could say more, Evan turned to Logan with an innocence sharp enough to cut through every layer of pretense. "Daddy, do you have 2 wives now?" A sound escaped the crowd, a mix of gasp, sigh, and disbelief. Even Eleanor's composure cracked. Logan stumbled backward, his face draining of color. "No, Evan, no. It's not like that," he stammered. "But you told me last week you were staying with someone," Evan continued, frowning. "You said you were helping a friend. Was it her?" The knife twisted. Logan looked cornered, breathless. "Evan, please, buddy, that's not... Daddy just made a mistake." Evan blinked. "A mistake that made Mommy cry last night?" Logan collapsed into silence, because the truth from a child is something even the most seasoned liar can't outrun. The room didn't judge anymore, it condemned. And Evan, unknowingly, delivered the final blow that shattered whatever fragile image Logan had left. The study had become a courtroom, and Evan's innocent question was the final piece of testimony no one could ignore. Logan stood trembling, staring at his son as if he were staring into a mirror, reflecting everything he never wanted to see. Evan held my hand tighter. Mom, can we go home now? He whispered. Home, a word that suddenly felt unfamiliar inside these walls. Before I could answer, Uncle Richard straightened his posture. The board will not tolerate this, he declared. Logan, you've committed ethical violations, financial misconduct, and now personal scandal? Investors will panic. Aunt Vivian nodded, arms crossed. This family built its reputation for 100 years. You tore through it in 8 months. Logan opened his mouth, then closed it, unable to defend himself from a truth that was now fully illuminated. But it was Eleanor who sealed his fate. She stepped toward her son, not with anger this time, but with a grief so deep it shook even me. Logan, she murmured, you have disgraced your father's name, and mine. He flinched, like a child hearing disappointment from a parent for the first time. You will resign, she continued. Completely, permanently, and you will attend counseling before I even consider speaking to you again. Logan shook his head violently. Mom, you can't exile me. This is my family. No, she corrected. Family is earned, not inherited. The words sliced through the room like glass. Roxy wiped her face, voice trembling. Mrs. Hawkins, I didn't know he had a wife. I swear, if I had known. Eleanor surprised everyone by placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. My dear, you were deceived too. Then her eyes met mine. Mara, she said softly, I owe you an apology. Gasps echoed across the room. I judged you, she admitted. I dismissed you. But today, you showed dignity, honesty, and strength far beyond anything my son has shown. She glanced at Evan. You have protected your child with courage, something Logan has forgotten. Logan's face crumpled. Mom, don't choose her over me. I'm not choosing, Eleanor replied. I'm recognizing the truth. Then she looked directly at me and said, You, Mara, are the only one here acting like a Hawkins. The room fell silent, heavy, reverent. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't losing a family today. He was. The room felt unbearably still after Eleanor's declaration, like every piece of air had frozen around us, waiting to see what I would do next. Logan stared at me with a desperation that might have once moved me. Not anymore. Something inside me had shifted. The moment Evan asked to go home, I realized there was nothing here worth fighting for except my son's peace. I straightened, lifting Evan gently into my arms. He wrapped his small hands around my shoulders, burying his face in my neck, as if he sensed that leaving, not staying, was the brave choice. I'm done, I said softly, not angry, not trembling, just done. Logan staggered toward me. Mara, don't walk out like this. We can fix it. Please, don't. Eleanor stepped between us with an authority that silenced him instantly. Let her speak. I looked Logan in the eyes, really looked, and saw not the man I married, but the man he had slowly become. A stranger, carved from selfishness and entitlement. Fixing us was never the problem, I said quietly. You never wanted to fix anything. You wanted me to forgive while you continued to destroy whatever trust we had left. His jaw tightened. I made mistakes. No, I cut in, my voice clear and steady. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is losing your temper once in a while. What you did was a pattern, a choice, a double life you built deliberately. He shook his head violently. Mara, you're my wife. No, I whispered. I was your shield. Gasps rippled through the room. Even Roxy covered her mouth, stunned. I continued. I protected your career by staying silent. I protected your reputation by pretending. I protected Evan by carrying the weight alone. But I'm done carrying what you created. Logan reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. Evan tightened his hold. I'll have the divorce papers sent this week, I said. My lawyer will contact you about custody. You can't take my son, Logan shouted, voice cracking. You already lost him, I replied. You just didn't notice. The final blow landed without force, just truth. I turned to leave, and this time no one stopped me, not even Eleanor. As I walked through the wide hallway of the Hawkins estate, Evan's arms around me, the strangest feeling washed over me. Freedom. Not loud, not triumphant. Quiet, certain, and absolutely mine. News travels fast in wealthy circles, especially when it involves scandal, betrayal, and the potential collapse of a legacy worth hundreds of millions. By Monday morning, the Hawkins board had already assembled in a glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor of their Park Avenue headquarters. Logan wasn't invited. He was summoned. He arrived looking smaller somehow, his once perfect posture slouched, his suit wrinkled, his confidence gutted. Even the security guard at the entrance avoided meeting his eyes. Inside the boardroom, Eleanor sat at the head of the table, flanked by Richard, Vivian, and the legal team. No softness, no hesitation, just the steel of a dynasty prepared to protect itself. Logan Hawkins. The attorney began, sliding a printed report forward. This is a formal notification that the committee has voted unanimously to remove you as COO, effective immediately. Logan blinked rapidly. You can't be serious. Richard interjected, voice stern. We're very serious. Your behavior endangered the company. Your forged signatures, your false identity, your misuse of corporate funds. This isn't gossip. It's criminal. Logan's gaze darted to Eleanor, the last lifeline he thought he had. Mom, please, I can make it right. Give me one chance. For a brief second, Eleanor's eyes softened, not with sympathy, but with mourning for the son she once believed in. You had countless chances, she said. You used none wisely. He reached for her hand like a child begging forgiveness, but she pulled away. You will resign voluntarily, she said quietly. And in exchange, the family will handle this discreetly. Refuse, and we proceed publicly. You will be held liable for every cent misused. Logan's voice cracked. Mom, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? The question hung in the air, pathetic, lost, and painfully revealing. Eleanor answered gently but firmly. You will learn to build a life without destroying someone else's. Security escorted him out, not by force, but by protocol. He didn't fight it. He couldn't. His shoulders sagged as he stepped into the hallway. No applause, no legacy, no title. Nothing left but the echo of what he had thrown away. That afternoon, his accounts were frozen, his corporate car repossessed, his name scrubbed from the company website before sunset. He texted me once, just once. Mara, please, I need you. I stared at the message until it blurred. Then I deleted it. Because needing me was never the same as valuing me. And Logan finally understood the difference. The first Monday after the Hawkins fallout felt strangely quiet. No lawyers calling, no board members watching my every breath, no husband filling the apartment with the tension of secrets. For the first time in years, I woke up without bracing myself for disappointment. Evan padded into my room, curls messy, clutching his stuffed lion. Mom, he murmured, climbing into bed beside me. Is Dad gone forever? I wrapped an arm around him. No, sweetheart, he's still your dad. But things are going to be different. Different. A word that used to terrify me. Now, it felt like oxygen. Later that morning, I opened my email and froze. A message from the CEO of Sterling & Rowe, the Manhattan PR agency I'd quietly applied to months ago but assumed I'd never hear from. We reviewed your crisis management proposal. We'd like to offer you the Director of Communications position. Full benefits, flexible schedule for parents. Let's talk this week. I reread the email twice, then a third time, until the words finally became real. It felt like life had opened a window just when a door had slammed shut. By Wednesday, I was in their Park Avenue office, sleek glass walls, views of the skyline, everything polished and humming with purpose. The CEO, Dana Rowe, shook my hand firmly.
Your strategy for controlling narrative under pressure is exceptional, she said.
Frankly, you handled your personal crisis more gracefully than some executives handle million-dollar scandals. I almost laughed, if only she knew. We'd be lucky to have you, she added. For the first time in years, someone wasn't asking me to shrink. They were asking me to lead. When I left the building, the sun was setting behind the Manhattan skyline. I walked Evan home from school, holding his hand while he excitedly told me about his day. The city glowed around us, warm, alive, full of possibility. And then, just as we passed a small neighborhood cafe, someone called my name. Mara? I turned. Standing there, holding a coffee and looking at me with a mixture of surprise and something deeper, was Liam Brooks, my college friend, the one who once understood me better than anyone, but life had pulled us in different directions. He smiled slowly. I heard about everything. If you ever need someone in your corner, professionally or personally, I'm here. My breath caught. For the first time, the future didn't look broken. It looked open. Liam Brooks had always been the kind of man whose presence softened a room. Not with charm, not with arrogance, but with a steadiness that made people breathe easier. Seeing him again after almost a decade felt like stumbling into a memory you didn't realize you'd missed. He stood there on the sidewalk, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, the breeze catching the edges of his hair. Evan peeked at him curiously from behind my leg. "Hey, little man," Liam said gently. "I'm Liam. Your mom and I went to school together." Evan nodded, assessing him with cautious seriousness. That tiny gesture, my son evaluating whether a grown man deserved his trust, hit me unexpectedly hard. Liam's eyes returned to mine. "You look stronger," he said quietly, "even after everything." I let out a breath. Some days I still feel like I'm piecing myself back together. "Maybe that's how strength starts," he replied. We walked together toward the cafe he'd come from. Evan tugged my hand and whispered, "Can he sit with us?" And somehow that simple question softened something tight inside my chest. We chose a small corner table. Liam ordered Evan a hot chocolate without asking his preference, because he remembered. In college, I drank hot chocolate on stressful nights. He used to bring it to the library when he knew I wouldn't take a break. That memory warmed the air between us. "So," he said, after Evan wandered over to the pastry display, "I heard about Logan, and the board, and the barbecue." He winced. "Brutal." "I didn't plan to blow up an empire," I said. "I just wanted the truth to stop suffocating me." He nodded. "You didn't destroy anything, Mara. You revealed what was already rotting." For a moment, the noise of the cafe faded. He looked at me, not with pity, not with curiosity, but with recognition. "Back then," he said slowly, "I liked you. A lot. But you were with Logan, and I respected that." He paused. "I'm not saying this to complicate your life. I just want you to know. I see you. I always did." My heart tightened, surprised, uncertain, but not afraid. Before I could answer, Evan ran back, holding a muffin.
Mom, look, they have chocolate chip.
Liam smiled at him, then at me. A small, quiet possibility formed between us. Not a replacement, not a rescue. A beginning. 2 months later, Manhattan glowed like a city made of fire and glass. The River Cafe, resting beneath the Brooklyn Bridge, shimmered with warm lights reflecting off the water. It was the kind of place where life-changing conversations happened, quietly, beautifully, without theatrics. Liam chose it on purpose. He greeted Evan first, handing him a small puzzle book. "This should keep you busy while your mom and I talk." Evan grinned, instantly trusting him more than he ever had with Logan. That alone said enough. When we sat at the balcony table, overlooking the skyline, the night felt suspended, like the universe was holding still just long enough for me to catch up with my own heart. "You look happier," Liam said softly, "lighter." "I'm learning," I replied. "Healing isn't loud. It's slow, quiet. And you're doing it well." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The city hummed beneath us, the bridge lights flickering like stars that refused to stay in the sky. Finally, Liam reached into his coat, not urgently, not dramatically, and placed a small velvet box on the table. My heart stopped. "Before you panic," he said with a laugh, "it's not what you think. Just open it." Hands trembling slightly, I lifted the lid. Inside was a delicate gold necklace, simple, elegant, nothing excessive. A small pendant shaped like a compass rested in the center. "To remind you," Liam murmured, "that you didn't lose your way. You were led somewhere better." Emotion tightened my throat. "I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give," he continued. "I just want to walk with you, one day at a time. No lies, no shadows, no double lives." A tear slipped down my cheek, not from sadness, but from the relief of being seen without expectations attached. "But Mara," his voice softened even more, "when you're ready, truly ready, I'd like the chance to love you the way you deserved all along." I exhaled, the cold air curling around us. "Liam," I whispered, "I'm not the same woman I was." "I know," he replied. "That's why I'm here." Evan looked up from his puzzle then, eyes wide. "Mom, can Liam come with us to the park tomorrow?" Liam smiled. I nodded. And under the lights of Manhattan, with my son leaning into me, and a man who saw my worth sitting beside me, I felt the truth settle in my bones. Maybe beginnings don't ask permission, they just arrive. 3 months after the Hawkins barbecue, the day the truth cracked open an empire, life had settled into a rhythm I never imagined possible. Quiet mornings, peaceful dinners, laughter that didn't feel forced. Evan sleeping through the night without waking from tension he didn't know he was absorbing. Some wounds don't bleed on the surface. Some bleed in the air children breathe. But our air was clean again. Logan, meanwhile, had faded from the skyline of our lives like a building stripped of its lights. News whispers confirmed he'd moved into a small rental on the outskirts of Queens. No company car, no corner office, no entourage. His frozen accounts had been partially released only after he accepted legal supervision, mandatory counseling, and full repayment agreements. Eleanor never shielded him again. She visited Evan often, bringing board games, small gifts, and a gentleness I once thought she didn't possess. One afternoon, as she watched Evan race across the park, she said quietly, "My son's punishment isn't losing his fortune. It's realizing he lost the one person who ever tried to save him." I didn't argue, because it was true. And then there was Liam. Steady, patient, kind. He didn't rush me. He didn't push. He simply showed up, consistently. For coffee, for school pickups, for evenings when Evan needed help with homework, and I needed someone who looked at me without expecting anything in return. One chilly October evening, the three of us stood on the pedestrian walkway of the Brooklyn Bridge, watching the city glow like a constellation spilled across the earth. Evan tugged Liam's sleeve. "Are you going to stay with us forever?" he asked. Liam's eyes flicked to mine, asking permission, not assuming. "If your mom wants me to," he said gently. I felt my heartbeat stutter, not with fear, but with a quiet certainty that had grown stronger every day. "I do," I said, breath catching in the cool air. "I really do." Evan cheered, throwing his arms around both of us. Liam leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead, a promise, not a claim. Behind us, the Manhattan skyline shimmered, a symbol of everything that once broke me, and everything I had rebuilt. Justice had come, pain had passed, and what remained was a life not rescued, but chosen, a life I finally belonged to. All right, my friends, so the story has finally come to an end. And if you are still here, listening with me right now, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength, or of a moment you thought you'd never rise from. What Mara's story teaches us is simple but powerful. Your healing begins the moment you stop negotiating with what hurts you. The Stoics said it beautifully. The obstacle is the way. Meaning the very thing that breaks us often becomes the doorway to our greatest clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If something is outside your control, let it go." Mara didn't heal because life suddenly became easier. She healed because she stopped holding on to what was already gone. And maybe that is what this story is whispering to you, too. You deserve peace. You deserve honesty. You deserve people who choose you without hesitation. So if this journey made you feel understood, inspired, or just a little less alone, then don't leave quietly. Leave something behind for us, a like, a share, or a subscription, so we can keep walking through these stories together, learning, growing, and finding strength in places we never expected. I'm here with you, and I'm grateful you stayed. Just a quick note for everyone watching. This entire story is a work of fiction, created purely for entertainment and emotional reflection. None of the characters, events, or situations are real, and any resemblance to actual people or experiences is completely coincidental. These dramatized narratives are written to explore themes of healing, betrayal, courage, and personal growth in a way that feels cinematic, but they are not factual retellings. I share this because I want to honor your trust and stay fully aligned with YouTube's guidelines for honest storytelling. Thank you for being here, for engaging with the journey, and for allowing fiction to spark real conversations about strength and self-worth. If you enjoy stories that make you feel, think, or reflect, I'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue growing this community together.